but I think for us, our goals are going to be to sit down with this administration, just like we do every 4 years with an incoming administration, and remind them of the benefits of renewable fuels, remind them of the jobs that are created in rural America because of renewable fuels, and really highlight how renewable fuels like ethanol check all the boxes of the things they say are important to them. Whether it's American energy first, which is something we hear a lot about, American energy dominance, getting a handle on energy inflation, reducing costs for consumers, creating jobs, manufacturing jobs domestically. Those are all things that ethanol does and has been doing for the last 30 or 40 years. So we're going to do our best to sit down with the new officials in the incoming administration and make our case, make our pitch about why ethanol needs to remain a central part of their energy strategy moving forward.
We saw an appointment so far for the EPA administrator, and that gentleman probably will be approved, but Mr. Zeldin doesn't have a real exciting history supporting ethanol and biofuels.
Well, that's true. When Mr. Zeldin was in Congress for 8 years, he represented New York's first district. Not a hotbed of agriculture or biofuels activity. He did unfortunately sign his name to some legislative proposals that would repeal the renewable fuel standard. So that gives us some pause and some concern. But I guess maybe the silver lining is that was 6 or 7 or 8 years ago, and the world has really changed, and the debate around the RFS has changed. The political dynamics around the RFS are different now. The marketplace is different. Back then you had oil refiners calling up their supporters in Congress saying, hey, you need to repeal the RFS. We don't really have that today. You've got oil refiners that have made investments in renewable fuels and benefit from the renewable fuel standard. So it's our hope that moving forward, the debate will be different around the RFS with Mr. Zeldin.
The ethanol industry is consuming a third of our corn, which is very important.
Yep.
But to comply with the new environmental rules, 45Z particular, those ethanol plants have to do something with the carbon dioxide. There's a lot of farmers who are not real happy about crossing their fields. What's the opportunities for getting those plants to be able to sequester that carbon on site,
Yep,
as opposed to transferring it from state to state?
Well, there are a lot of ethanol facilities that are already located just right above or adjacent to the right geology to sequester carbon on site. So like I said, there's several dozen facilities that would not need a pipeline to transfer their CO2. So those are probably going to be the first movers. Those are going to be the places where we see geologic sequestration happening first. There's also another pipeline project that a lot of people aren't talking about called the Tallgrass Pipeline that runs through Nebraska, east to west, kind of along the Platte River, and it's already in the ground. It's previously a natural gas pipeline. They've decommissioned, they're not shipping natural gas in it. They're recommissioning it to ship CO2. So that project avoids a lot of the permitting and other issues that the Summit project is facing. But we're hopeful that the Summit project can still move ahead, come together, find a way of advancing that project, because it is important for our industry moving forward. Because like you said, corn ethanol facilities are going to have to find a way of lowering carbon intensity by another 40 or 50% in order to qualify for sustainable aviation fuel tax credits.
It would seem like that there might be need for research in how to convert that CO2 to a marketable product, or something that's not going to be an issue,
Yep,
that can be packaged and resold right at that location.
There is a tremendous amount of research and development going on in that space, looking at using CO2 as a feedstock for other chemicals, other products. These are often referred to as e-fuels, where you're taking CO2, renewable CO2 in the case of ethanol, biogenic CO2, and making it into other products, chemicals, fuels. There's also the concept of injecting CO2 into building products, concrete blocks, center blocks, things like that. We're seeing a lot of development in that space as well.